Hello and welcome to episode 254 of the Casual Tryhard podcast. I'm Brian.
And I'm James.
The pre-show was Old Men Yell at Technology.
Oh boy. I'm sorry for that, patrons.
But we were trying to do a new thing on the podcast another time.
Yeah.
Because we didn't quite get there. We got so close. But we're going to talk about the fact that the content gods have provided us with
content.
Yeah, MTG Weekly with like stuff in it.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that for a little bit, and then maybe we'll get into a little bit of limited and maybe a little bit of like Cascade deck shenanigans.
Yeah. I had a couple thoughts. I don't know if we're going to get to it or not. There's a good amount of this the MTG Weekly content that we should probably cover before we get into that. So if we get to it, we get to it. If not, we'll talk about it next week or whatever.
Yes. So if you want to reach out to us on social media, Facebook, Discord, X, the artist formerly known as Twitter,
yep.
Or email, all those links are in the description. Like, click on those, say hey, let us know what's going on, what you want us to talk about.
Yeah, hit us up. If you're looking to support the show, there's a couple ways you can do it. The first is with a TCG player affiliate link, CasualTryHard.com/TCG. Surf on over there using that link, and anything you purchase will help to support the show. Easy for you, really helps the show out, so we'd appreciate it. If you want to support us more directly, you can do so at patreon.com/CasualTryHardMTG. Head on over there, chip in a couple bucks, however much you feel like, and you get access to the Patreon perks, which are our show notes, our disaster of a pre-show this week. I apologize again for that. And you get put on my mailing list for when I have swag. I know I'm a little late this time around. I'm working on something really cool. It'll be worth it when I'm done, I promise. I'll get it done as quick as I can. It'll be cool though. So stay tuned for that. If any of that sounds good, or if you just want to support the show, like I said, patreon.com/CasualTryHardMTG. You can chip a couple bucks in and support the show that you love and that we love making.
Yes. So we are going to talk about updates to bans and like banning policy. This is kind of the famous Wizards announcement of an announcement.
Yeah, kind of, sort of. Like, I didn't know this stream was happening, and I know you didn't know this stream was happening. Shortly after it went live, I saw some rumblings on X about them changing the ban schedule or whatever. That's not really what they're doing. They're altering the window a little bit. Where, what was it before? Like 2 weeks after?
2 weeks after.
Now they're giving themselves a window. So instead of it just being 2 weeks after a major set, it's going to be 2 to 5 weeks afterwards, so that they have a little bit of time to assess or whatever. They're not locked into a schedule. And then they're going to do the additional ban window at rotation. That they had all of that stuff like was already in place. So none of that is really changing, except that they're opening that window up a little bit for the after set thing. One of the things that they did say, though, was that they're going to try and, like, any bans that affect standard aren't going to be, or they're going to try not to have them be right after a set release. They're going to try and save those for the rotation ban announcement.
Okay.
So that is, I don't think that's something that they had clarified before.
So basically they want to use the like fall window for standard only.
Yep. And then the other ones are going to be for some of the other formats to kind of keep them in line.
So, I mean, which is good because like it definitely has felt like some of the other formats have been abandoned.
Yeah. I see what you did there.
Yes. Abandoned. I wasn't even trying, but we did it. The first like thing we're gonna look at is Pioneer, and they're saying this is like the largest format getting cards exclusively for main set releases.
Mm-hmm.
so like,
I mean, there's really only two formats that do that: Standard and Pioneer.
True.
It's not hard to classify it as the largest when the other one is Standard.
Very true. Very true. But it's so it is, other than Standard, the easiest format to break with a Standard release.
Correct.
Right? Like, Modern has significantly more power level, so even if there is some like wonky combo or something, you have a way to. You usually will have a way to deal with it because there's so much higher power level cards.
Yeah.
But Pioneer's kind of in that sweet spot of it's powerful, but you don't have as many like answers, so it's easier to kind of like push something over the edge.
Yeah, what I thought was kind of weird was that the way that they described Pioneer as the largest set getting cards exclusively from main set releases. Because one of the recurring things that we'd been talking about is how Pioneer's the new Modern and Modern's the new Legacy. And like that used to be Modern's claim to fame.
Yes.
Was that it was the largest format that got cards exclusively from main set releases.
Yeah, and now like you don't get the Commander cards in Modern, but you kind of get everything else.
Yeah. And realistically, like the Commander cards really impact Legacy like they used to now that we have Fire Design and like 10 sets a year or whatever crazy amount of cards that we're getting.
Not as much.
Yeah. Like there was the turtle thing. Kappa Cannoneer was a thing for a minute, but that only lasted until Murktide was printed.
And what else? Like there's been some Lord of the Rings cards.
Well, right, but they're not Commander products anymore, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess they're like the Commander Precon decks, which used to give us cards, but now there's like the Commander draft things. And so there's like Creative Technique, which isn't like a super big deck, but like all the Cascade cards from the various like Commander products that are in that.
Yeah.
And other little odds and ends. But yeah, it used to be that like almost every Commander set release you could count on like one or two cards to go into Legacy.
Yeah.
But I don't think they need to do that anymore, right? Like those sell well enough.
Yeah, they don't need to sell Commander cards to Legacy players because like Commander's by a mile the most popular format. And because like if they want to put something that's higher power level into the format, they can do that through any number of the Modern sets. You know, Modern Horizons, Lord of the Rings, whatever else we're getting.
Yeah, or like the Commander like draft products. Right, like Commander Masters or Commander
Legends,
whatever thing, Legends. Yeah, like there's plenty of ways for them to get those cards in the format, because it used to feel like there'd be like one or two like low mana value, high power cards in the Commander precons.
Yeah,
as like a plant for like we can get some Legacy nerds to buy this.
Right.
Or like stores will crack these because they want to have this single. And now they don't really have to do that. Like they're just like, oh, we're going to sell a bajillion of these precons.
Right.
And we can put this card in something else. So, I like there will be changes to Pioneer on December 4th.
Yep. They announced that. So that is a thing that's going to happen. And we were trying to get some of this on the show. That's what the pre-show was about. So apologize in advance for that. But there was, like, they had some discussion around this, and they didn't come out and say, but from the discussion, it sounded like that they saw that there was a problem with the Discover deck, and they saw that there's a problem with Mono Green. And it sounded like they were going to do something about both of those.
It's only taken like 2 years for them to realize that the Mono Green deck was a problem.
Yeah. That's kind of why I wanted to try what we were trying during the pre-show, though, because they kind of explained themselves a little bit, and obviously, like, I'm not the one that's going to take anything Wizard says at face value because I don't trust a thing they say anymore. But it sounds like they're changing their philosophy a little bit.
Okay.
Because I don't know exactly why, but it kind of sounds like it's not as important as it used to be, so they can kind of loosen it up a little bit. What I gathered from this was that they're now starting to look at more than just win rates.
The clip I would hear as we were setting up was talking about like fun.
Well, that was like a whole nother part of it, but
okay.
There was also part of that I clipped out that actually wasn't in the thing I was trying to present. That was talking about how during Affinity Standard, win rates were in check because people were main decking Shatter. So the numbers didn't look as bad as they really were, but nobody was showing up to events. So if you looked at the format based on the numbers, everything looked fine, even though it was incredibly warped. But the reason that they had to take action was because like people just weren't playing at events because they weren't having fun.
Yeah, because you had to main deck Shatter.
Right.
I mean, that has been... We've talked about this in, like, other situations where, like, when you're to the point where you have to, like, main deck Graveyard Hate or main deck Artifact Hate, that means that, like, things are broken.
Right.
And you're, like, trying to do your... Like, Hogak, when you played 4 Leylines main deck.
Yeah, there's an issue there.
Right? And so, like...
Well, when Hogak played 4 Leylines main deck for the mirror.
Yes.
Like, that's when you know there's a problem.
But, like, if you're in a situation where you're like, well, I have to play, you know, like, kind of like Oko Winter, right? Where, like, people were, like, playing main deck Aethergus.
Right.
Because it was live, because green and red were so good.
Yeah.
Or mainly green. So, like, oh, it doesn't look that bad, but it's like, we've warped the entire format where we're playing a, like, situational hate card.
Yeah.
Like, there's not really... The thing is, there's not really a situational hate card for 3 mana 4/4s.
Correct.
And 3 mana 4/5s. Right? There's just not like, oh, I have a good hate card for this. Like, there's not, like, just, like... what is it, Death Grip?
Yeah.
Like, black, kill a green permanent or something?
Yeah.
Or black kill a green permanent. Death Mark, there we go. So it's good, like, I think the ban would have to be, like, Karn.
I wouldn't be surprised. I think that would have to be the ban. That also sounded suspiciously like what they were talking about when they were trying to be vague about what's coming next week.
It's like, oh yeah, you know, them having a mana sink, you know, in card advantage and like answers for whatever they need. It's like, oh, you're describing a particular 4 mana planeswalker,
right?
I mean, the deck will still be like you just I don't know, you play Vivian and you play a Vivian in that spot, or like Nissa. Like, there's any number of cards that like fill that role and like don't invalidate artifact strategies and don't just give you access to your sideboard at all points.
Right.
So, like, that would be good, though. Not really getting to use these Cavaliers as intended, but that's all right. They're just sitting on the desk, so we're going to use them anyway.
You were going to put them in elementals anyway. Don't kid yourself.
Yeah, maybe. So yeah, so that is good. And then did they mention something about them Discover Boys?
Not as much as they did with Mono Green, but they did say that they thought the deck was a problem. So I don't know if they actually came out and said the deck's a problem, but when they were talking about fun in the format, They mentioned a couple times just dying on turn 3. And
yes.
how, like, one person might have fun, but it's a net negative fun for the format. So
yeah. Yeah, you know what keeps mono green in check? Them dying on turn 3.
correct.
Yeah, like mono green has literal 0 outs to that deck.
Yep.
Like either version of it. It's just like, oh, there's nothing for me here. I just die now.
I still haven't seen the Quint version. I've been playing I wouldn't say quite a bit, but I've been playing more than usual on Arena, and I've run across the mirror a few times, but I still have not seen the Quint version.
I played the Quint version against it like a week ago.
Yeah.
And then I haven't played against it since.
Yeah.
And I did get my tinfoil hat out for arena conspiracies because I switched to a deck that I thought was good against the Cascade or the Discover deck.
And then never saw it again.
But then I played it like 3 out of 4 games or 3 out of 4 matches over the last couple days.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like it's back. Okay. Okay, this is still in the format. Yeah. Check. So like that'll be good.
Yep.
But like we had like the format has this weird problem that if mono green goes away, like that probably makes Rakdos a little bit better. But like how good does like Lotus Field become?
It's true.
Right? Like you have these like non-interactive combo decks that are like hard to interact with. Like Rakdos can like tear their hand apart, but they can still just like, like they're like one top deck away after they get a Lotus Field.
Right.
So be interesting to see if they're like okay with Lotus Field as like a deck.
Which I kind of think not, because if they were super content with Lotus Field existing in the format, like I think they would have prioritized it for Arena. And they haven't.
Yeah, like there are like, they're not nerfed version on Arena. Oh yeah, they're not the same at all. But maybe but you don't see them very often.
Yeah.
Maybe they're like, oh, if we just banned Hidden Strings.
Yeah.
In Pioneer, like literally only goes in one deck. You can play like a C- version of Lotus Field if you want.
Yeah, like the versions that I've seen, I really haven't kept up with what's being played in paper, but the versions I've seen on Arena have been run like strict Proctor.
Oh, so that's the blue-white control list.
Oh, okay.
So there's like an untap version that plays like Vizier and something else that like untap something. So it's closer to the paper version.
Yeah. But
like the blue-black the blue-white like discontinuity Storm Proctor deck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pure misery.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's
pure misery. I'm gonna play a Risen Reef. You played a 3-mana 1/1 fool. Next, it's like no, I literally can't kill that card.
I'm gonna play 4 Carnosaurs.
Yeah. But yeah, there's that one, which is like a kind of a version of blue-white control.
Yeah. And
then there's like ones that like
very much a Lotus Field deck though.
Oh, it is. Yeah. But I was thinking like Lotus Field combo, like Dream's Grip. I think Dream's Grip's in no, maybe that's the modern version. But like Hidden Strings, Vizier, and then like you like ramp into tutors and like nonsense. So like that it's weird that they were just like, we're not going to put it on Arena.
Yeah.
But here you go.
While we're talking about Pioneer real quick, one of the other things that they mentioned in the stream was that they kind of had a lengthy discussion about unbans
Okay.
which I thought was weird. Pioneer is kind of a weird format anyway for anybody that wasn't around when Pioneer was conceived. They started with basically no bans other than the fetch lands, and it was kind of a Wild West free-for-all. And then they aggressively banned. Like every week, we made the joke a few times about the Olive Garden lunch, and then a ban comes out of it because that's basically what happened. There'd just be bans out of nowhere. But because of that, and how much like Magic has changed since the birthing of Pioneer, just in power level and complexity and fire design and all that. Some of the stuff that got like caught a quick ban early in the format may not necessarily need to be on the ban list anymore. So they kind of did have a lengthy discussion about unbans too. Not that they want to, break anything, kind of like they did with Golgari Grave Troll, where it got unbanned and then quickly went back on the ban list.
Mm-hmm.
But they said it's definitely not like out of the possibility also.
So real quick, the Pioneer ban list, Balustrade Spy, which they just recently unbanned or banned, and probably is not like okay with all the MDFCs. Let's say Expressive Iteration, not okay.
Yep.
Felidar Guardian is there because it combos with Saheeli.
Yep.
They probably don't want to unban it because it might not sound like it, but it's basically the Discover combo.
Right.
No, it's 2 cards, so it's not just play 1 card and win. But like, or you can think of it as like almost like a different version of Creativity, where you just kind of have to like you play a control game and then you're like, oopsie, I win.
Yeah.
Splinter
Twin-ish.
Yeah. Field of the Dead, probably no bueno.
Right.
Inverter of Truth. It's probably not good to have around. Like we're getting into all the decks.
The only thing it does is unfun, right? Like there's nothing, or I shouldn't say fun, unfair. There's nothing fair you're doing with Inverter of Truth. I don't know that deck is
good enough now.
Yeah, competitive power level now. You could certainly play it, and I think like you wouldn't be laughed out of a tournament. But with some of the other stuff that's going on, I don't know that it's particularly competitive.
Kethis, the Hidden Hand.
Yeah.
I feel like there's just so much random graveyard hate now.
Yeah, I think Kethis is
like
probably fine.
Fill your graveyard, do shenanigans does not seem like a viable plan.
And they've banned like a bunch of cards out of that deck besides Kethis too, right? I feel like that deck got shadow banned like 4 times before they actually banned Kethis.
Well, they've been Teferi before Kethis as well?
Yeah.
Or after? Then Leyline of Abundance got banned super quick. Like, they can't unban it because, like, then Mono Green's just casting Cavaliers on turn 2.
Right.
So probably don't want to do that. They would cast it on turn 2 because you go, like... No, I guess that'd be 4 mana on turn 2. Land, elf, land. That's 4 mana. Still.
Yeah.
Not great. Loris, can't unban that.
Right.
Nexus of Fate, like, again, that just leads to Bant Fogs, which is, no one wants that. Can't unban Oko.
Right.
Could you unban Once Upon a Time? I guess it gives you too much consistency.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's tough with mono green being a thing. Like, if mono green wasn't a thing, maybe you could. But, like, Once Upon a Time digs you deeper trying to find your Nykthos or your gas. Yeah, it's consistency. Like, it digs you deeper to find whatever piece you're missing.
Like, I was thinking, like, Greasefang, just, like, kind of a free Grizzly salvage.
Yeah.
Right, because that deck's Abzan, so probably not. I think you can unban Smuggler's Copter.
I think so, too.
Like, that one just seems, like, silly. Like, where the power level of stuff is, and, like... Yeah, it just seems like, play my Smuggler's Copter. Cool, I exile it with my March of Otherworldly Light. We move on with our lives, and you're like, oh, okay, thanks.
Yep.
Or like I crew it, fatal push it, upbraid it, like any number of things. It just doesn't seem. And they keep printing vehicles that are like some percentage of Smuggler's Copter.
Right.
Like they're like, what is the line we can walk up to? And it's like, none of them are playable. It's one on a blue for a 3/4 that loots.
Yeah.
It's on the ground. Yeah, no one's gonna play that in Pioneer. But thank you. Cannot ban Teferi.
Right.
Undercity Informer is a no.
Mm.
It's funny that like a bunch of the cards, like all the cards I play, why did they ban Underworld Breach? I forget what shenanigans were going on with Underworld Breach.
I know there was a Breach deck. I don't remember what it was. That like one of the early Lotus Field decks was a Breach deck?
Maybe. Like you hit Breach and then you just win.
Yeah.
So maybe. Cannon ban Uro, really?
No.
Cannon ban Veil. Walking Ballista died for like the wrong card Sins.
Right.
Right, like that was we don't want to ban Heliod, so we'll ban Ballista.
Yeah.
But then like we also put Amala, which kind of does the same thing.
Yep.
In the format.
Yeah, that's a little bit weaker combo though.
The Amala one or the
Amala one.
Yeah, I guess one of the pieces is like indestructible.
Yeah.
But like I don't know, like Walking Ballista would do like Walking Ballista is not just a combo card.
Right.
Like it's only banned because of Heliod.
Right.
And now Heliod is not played at all. Like you could ban Heliod.
Bring Walking Ballista back.
Put Walking Ballista back.
Enable it in some other decks.
Yeah, and like have it as like a fair creature thing. Or like you know.
Of course, then it would just turn into a mana sink for mono green.
Yeah, or I was gonna say like you make infinite mana with your Lotus Field, and then you just have your colorless thing to do. I just want it so I can have better things with +1/+1 counters in my stupid artifact deck. But yeah, it's like borderline.
Yeah.
But like it's fine in Modern.
Mm-hmm.
And like I don't know how good the creature combo decks are.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like just in general, like when your best deck is like Jund,
yeah,
like it's kind of hard for your like second best deck to be Malirapod,
right?
You know what I mean? So like, if your best deck or second best deck is Rakdos,
yeah,
it's kind of hard to be like, well, they have to assemble a bunch of creatures.
Mm-hmm.
It's like through my thought seizes and abrades and. And right, like I think I'm okay with that as like a thing that they try.
Yeah.
Wilderness Reclamation also like up to no good.
Right.
But like I don't know, there's so many cards that just are like that like have this.
I don't know if you just skipped over it or if it's not on the ban list, but like Oath of Nissa, wasn't that banned?
It was banned and they took it back off.
Oh, they did take it off? Okay.
They took it back off.
It's not on Arena though, right?
It's not on Arena.
Okay.
So like you see people playing like
maybe that's I'm confused then.
They play the what is it called? The battle.
Yeah.
The battle for Ixalan or whatever that like looks at 4 and you get to put a land or a creature in your hand or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be Oath of Nissa.
Mm-hmm.
In like an ideal world. Yeah, but they banned it and then they unbanned it. Because it was like too good in mono green, because they're like, it leaves around a pit for devotion. It's like, you just keep printing green, unkillable monsters.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that one green pip's the problem here.
Right.
But like, Wilderness Wreck is kind of like free and like, just kind of leads to like, long, obnoxious, like, turns.
Mm-hmm.
And like kind of encourages the same kind of deck that you get from like creativity, where it's like, I'm a blue-red control deck,
right?
And then I have some way to like take advantage of Wilderness Reclamation, And I think it's like way better with Memory Deluge.
Probably.
Where you get to like play it and say go, and then you're just like Deluge, and you're just like, oh, okay, now they have their pieces.
Yeah.
And then Winota, like, it's like a creature combo card that just kind of has like a reasonable A plan, and then there are just times where you like lose the game on the spot because they attacked.
Yeah.
So probably can't unban it. So like, there's a handful of cards, probably like 3 or 4 that you can probably unban and not like wreck the format.
Yeah. I just thought it was interesting that they were talking about Pioneer specifically and mentioned like unbans.
I mean, they could be looking at like if you told me that they were going to unban Kethis, like I don't think that would do anything.
Well, so another thing that they kind of went into at length was talking about how like they have insider information about like what's coming, what's being printed, what's in development, yada yada yada. And then they kind of went into this unban thing. So I don't know like if they're expecting something to come. I don't know. I just thought it was like interesting in the context that they gave it.
Of unbanning being like we know what's coming.
Well, in Pioneer, where like the ban list isn't huge to begin with.
Yeah.
And like most of the things are there for a reason. And then they start talking about unbans, and then they start talking about we know what's coming down the pipeline. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. So that's Pioneer talk.
Yep.
And so Modern will have a ban.
Yeah, they specifically called out that Pioneer and Modern will have something banned next week. So
okay.
That is just me letting you know that it will have a ban. Didn't mean to be so blunt.
No, that's fine. No. Something tells me it's probably something from Scam.
Yeah. Yep.
Did they like hint at that, or is that just like we have brain cells and we can figure this out?
They more than hinted at it. That was basically the only deck they talked about at length was Scam.
Okay.
So
25% of the metagame Scam might be a problem.
Like they didn't call out any actual numbers, but they made a point to talk about how Fury is keeping small creature decks from being competitive, and how kind of like the pod thing, how it like limits what creatures they can print. They said that these like 1 mana, they like printing those 1 mana bring a thing back cards, like Undying or whatever.
Yeah,
but they're problematic with things like Fury and Grief. So
what you're telling me is putting free spells into Modern is a problem.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what I'm telling you. I don't necessarily think that's what
they might not necessarily agree.
Yeah. I very much got the feeling from this stream that what you and I have been saying for, I don't know, 6 months, a year, whatever, is 100% correct. That Pioneer is Modern, Modern is Legacy, Legacy is Vintage, and Vintage is dead.
Sick.
Because of this stuff. Like they specifically called out that Modern is a place for these cards to go. It's a set that they can just print things into. That's what Legacy used to be. It's a set for these sorts of really powerful interactions. That's what Legacy used to be. And they said that they're looking at curating the format more for fun than for competitive, which is kind of what Legacy used to be.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be really weird if Pioneer became like, if Pioneer like took Modern's place like in people's hearts.
Well, I mean, you got to think about like people though. Like, was it last week we were talking about like the explosion of players in Magic, and like what percentage of them have come into the game within the last like 3 years compared to like those of us that are left from 7 years ago?
Yeah, so like those new players probably don't have an attachment to Modern.
Right. And honestly, for a lot of time that they've been playing the game, like Modern probably hasn't been great. When was the last time Modern was great?
I don't think for a while.
Yeah.
It'd also be funny if they like banned beans in Modern.
Well,
just like, oops.
I mean,
oops about that.
I said that the only deck that they talked about was Scam, but they did mention beans a couple times. I don't know that they Scam was definitely mentioned in the context of getting a ban. Not that they said it was getting a ban, but it was in like the same sentence.
We're thinking about banning cards. Have you seen this Scam deck?
Yeah, basically. Whereas beans, they brought up a couple times. Not in the they talked about it a few different times during the stream, but it wasn't in the same sentence as we're banning something. It was
okay.
Like this deck exists. Here's an interaction. Here's an interaction. Here's an interaction.
Gotcha. Okay.
So,
and then Legacy is we're only gonna ban it if people ban stuff if people complain.
Basically, yeah. They specifically said that their ban philosophy for Legacy is shifting towards community sentiment rather than like hard numbers.
Okay.
Which kind of goes in line with it being a dead format. Or I shouldn't say dead format. There's a lot of people that love Legacy. I love Legacy. You love Legacy.
Unsupported?
Yes, unsupported is the word.
Like it, like you said, it's taking the spot of Vintage where unless something is like truly egregious, they're not going to do anything. And so, like, Legacy's probably going to look like Legacy looks unless something is like truly egregious.
Right.
So,
they also said that they're currently happy with the state of Legacy. They specifically called out that there's like 4 variants of the Delver deck, which they thought was great. They specifically called out all of the stuff that PK's been complaining about, the whole Days brainstorm thing, no sacred cows. They specifically called out that Force of Will, brainstorm, yada, yada, yada are the backbone of Legacy, and that's why people play, and they're unlikely to ever catch a ban.
There we go.
Yep.
There we go. Yeah, I mean, sadly, those are the Moxin of Legacy.
Yeah.
In terms of like, these cards probably aren't. No, Force of Will I think is necessary, but like Brainstorm might not be the best power level wise, but it is something that has been around for a long time, and we're not going to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
95.
Yeah, we're not gonna get rid of this card.
It's been around since before Legacy was Legacy.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just Legacy is just like, it's in this spot where like it's fine, but like I don't know, it happens so infrequently. Right. I remember I was telling, oh gosh, what is her name? I cannot remember. Anyway, I was like, Legacy to me is like you have your Force of Will deck, your Chalice deck, and your Depths deck. Those are the pillars of Legacy, and it's like I have a Chalice deck I like to play. I have a Depths deck that is Shadow Band.
Yep.
And then I have and then like I just kind of like bounce around with like, what is my Force of Will deck going to be? If my Force of Will deck can also be a Chalice deck, just bonus points.
Yep. Could also be a Depths deck.
It could. So my wife sent me like, oh hey, this like store that does like one of those like companies that like Magic's done some crossover with was doing like a sale on like shirts, and she's like, is there anything that you want? And I'm like I really don't need a like hoodie with the surgical extraction art on it. Like probably not.
Yeah.
But I sent her the Coalesce apparel link to Merit Lage 2020.
Oh yeah.
And she was like, why does it look like a Trump shirt? Why does it say like I thought it said Mar-a-Lago? I was like, no. So I like explained who our Lord and Savior Merit Lage was.
That's right.
And then like showed her a picture of the token. I'm like, no. This is just simply Merit Lage.
And I think you're going to move in with your in-laws there.
Yeah, she was like, oh, he converted.
Yep.
But yeah, so I might be rocking a Merit Lage 2020 shirt. Nice. One podcast I did a while back. I don't know if she was able to find it. They had a Golos shirt that was Golos Pilgrim versus the World.
That's pretty good.
And like kind of in the art style of Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was what was his name? Patrick Sullivan was wearing it on one of the receivables. So I'm like, I want this shirt.
Yeah.
If you can find this, I want this shirt. The shirt is good. All right. And then not related to bands.
Yeah, I mean there was some other stuff in the announcement, but I only took notes on the super important stuff because I was kind of working on something special. It didn't pan out. I tried
He's so
really
sad.
hard.
He's so sad. It was really an hour of like, what if we click this button?
Well,
no.
That was only after I started the call. You should have seen me like trying to scrub the video. Like I think that was the quickest I've ever gone through a video and edited it and rendered it like ever.
You're like, good job, computer.
Well, it wouldn't, like I don't have YouTube Premium, so it wouldn't let me download it.
Oh.
So I had to like play it in real time and screen grab it, and it's an hour long. So I got out of work, started that, and then had to edit it down. I went from an hour down to like 20 minutes and then render it. And that's when I started trying to like put stuff together in Streamlabs, and it just fell apart. I tried really hard.
He did. So then we have Cons of Tarkir.
Yeah.
Is coming to remastered is coming to Arena on the 12th.
Yep, December 12th. I guess that they're calling that Retro Day because that's also when Ravnica Remastered is getting mostly spoiled.
Okay.
I think they said that they're spoiling that set like over 2 days, like the entire set. And it's also when this is coming out. So,
all right then. Just can't stop, won't stop.
That's right. Dump it on us. I mean, I'm just still
keep
for Cons on Arena.
Oh yeah, no, I think that'll be. We might get me playing Sim Limited again.
Yeah.
I have so little time, man. So little time.
Well, lucky for you, it's coming out over winter break.
Yes. But I think we talked about maybe like kind of reviewing some of the like key cards from like Limited.
Yeah. Like honestly, like I feel kind of ashamed to admit this, but this was before I really got into Limited.
Oh man.
Yeah. Like I played some Cons Limited, but I wasn't a 4 times a week drafter like you were.
Yeah, I still like I've gone through my Cons box multiple times. I still have close to 3,000 commons and uncommons just from Cons.
Yeah.
And I've sold a bunch. But like once it gets spoiled, we can go through and maybe like call out some of the like, hey, this card was really good.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I'm not sure how it's going to roll out. I wouldn't be surprised if they were like, these are the cards, now go play.
Yeah,
I
maybe.
don't know if we're going to have time to do an episode on it. Like, we'll see. We could do one like as it releases, I guess, but I don't think there's going to be a week in between spoilers.
Yeah, well, there's like the 12th is a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yep.
So if they dump it on us, we could like do the episode that night and then get it to the people. Like we could get it up like early or get it up on like Thursday.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, these are the cards you shouldn't pass.
Sure.
So yeah, Journey to the Center of Ixalan. I have played 0 Limited.
Yeah,
I've been a bad podcaster.
I don't know if I talked about it on the show or if it was just something me and you were talking about or if it was the pre-show or whatever. The limited environment feels fine. It's definitely not an all-timer.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't find a lot that I had great success with, but I didn't feel like I was out of every game, which is kind of just like a math format for me. Like there's nothing that's really drawn me in to play some more. Like normally in limited, I like to find like the cracks and then like get in there before everybody else does and like, do my thing, and then I'll kind of get bored and move on. I never really found my cracks in this format.
So listening to LR last week, some of the cracks are 1-mana 1/1s.
No, just being aggressive.
This is another format where like now they're at uncommon, but you get like Cenote Scout. That can come in and be a 2/2. Or draw you a card. You get the blue thing that makes a map. Right, the 1/1 flyer. There's like another like common, maybe like 1/2 flyer, and then you like put pants on it. Oh. So there's like kind of, if you remember Keldheim, the like, what was it, like Battle Hawk or whatever? It was like a 1/2 like flying first strike. And then you just like put pants on it. Battle Raptor, yeah. You just like put like pants on it and then like go to town. So it sounds like this format, at least early on, had some of that going on, where you just like, you get a bunch of like goblin guides with extra steps. And some percentage of the time they're just goblin guides. And then you beat down with your collection of goblin guides.
Okay. But I mean, I kind of like, that was one of the decks I was playing with, was red with the goblin. It's like a 1/2, and if you have an artifact, it gets like +1/+0 or whatever. I drafted a bunch of them, and I don't know, like I said, I never really found the crack that I wanted to, so I kind of moved on.
Yeah, I have not played it. Like I said, like,
did they like the format or not?
I think like LSV had drafted it a lot, but he just drafts everything a lot, so I don't know. Like, it was new enough that they hadn't like.
Gotcha.
Like usually, like a couple weeks in, we'll be like, if Marshall's thing is like if Cube comes up and he leaves for Cube, and then doesn't want to come back. That's when he's kind of like, Oh, unrelated. They do the LR versus the Lords of Limited showdown. They're not doing it this time.
Why not?
Because Arena Direct Challenge is bugged.
Oh.
And they can't challenge each other.
Well, it kind of makes it hard, doesn't it?
It does. It makes it very hard. And like one of them like doesn't have a Magic Online account. Like I think it's Metronome or Tupperware doesn't have like a Magic Online account. So they just don't want to play a Magic Online. So they're like, we're not going to do this until like Arena Direct Challenge works. Yeah. So good job, Arena team.
I mean, I don't know why Arena Direct Challenge would stop working.
It has not worked in the past. Remember, like we were doing our things.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
There'd be times where it wouldn't work.
Consistent.
Yeah, like I don't know. You think that like this would be a pretty base level function, but apparently it is harder than we thought. So yeah. I have thought about standard. I have not played any standard.
I just want any standard.
I just want to like dinosaur into invasion of Allura, and then like just put like 20 power on the board and blow up some permanents. But I have not gotten to do that yet because I've been playing Explorer.
So have
I. So that's what I was messing with.
Yep. I've been a degenerate.
Thank you. I've not been. Strange.
Well, I figure one of us has to. And
one of us has to do it. So you've been playing the Discover deck. What version of the Discover deck have you been playing?
The creature version, I guess, not the Quint version. I don't know. I'm having fun with it. It's certainly not unbeatable, and the meta is changing to combat it for sure. I know you mentioned something during the pre-show about having adapted and now having matchups against it. I have seen that also. Lots of like main deck hate against it, but also stuff that's not even really hate. Like the deck is interruptible. And I think last week I mentioned something about like you can interact with the deck for sure. All it takes is a well-timed removal spell or like a piece of discard, and you're put so far behind that it doesn't really matter what you do. And at least that version of the deck, I can't talk about the Quint version because I haven't seen the deck played and I haven't played it. But this version is reasonably easy to set up the first time to try and go off. It's really difficult the second time, and it's just about impossible the third time. You just don't have enough pieces left.
Yeah. So I didn't play it because I was kind of thinking, really all it takes to beat the deck is like instant speed interaction. Let that be counter spells or removal.
Yeah.
So I started playing, it's an old version, but I started playing Creativity. Because, right, you have, what is it, Fire Prophecy?
Yep.
That always kills the Appraiser.
Yep.
You have Volcanic Spite that always kills the Appraiser. And then you have Make Disappears.
Yep.
That well, not always kills you can typically get one of the, like, you can either get the initial creature on the way down, or later in the game. Like, you can use that spell earlier, and then later in the game, hold up your removal.
Yep.
Or like, you make a might, or you have a 2/2, and then you get to like counter it for 4. And you're like in good spot with the Appraiser, or if they have to play the dinosaur, that's pretty much just a hard counter for the dinosaur.
Yep.
And then like you end the game quickly. Like you're not fiddling around with like, oh no, I have to win with a bunch of 1/1s. It's like, no, you just like 30 someone. Right. Like there are, you can definitely just go like, okay, counter your thing, untap, win.
Right.
And it's like, okay, well, that's simple enough. So I've been playing that. So I've been on that side of it. But what's fresh?
Like, realistically, you mentioned, cheap interaction or whatever. If you can disrupt the turn 3 Appraiser, like, you have plenty of time to do whatever the hell you want, because like that deck takes so much to get that turn 3 Appraiser. You've taken so much out of their hand to try and go off again. The quickest they're not gonna have another Appraiser in their hand. The quickest you're gonna do it's turn 6 to catch the dinosaur, and like you've got 3 more turns before they do anything. Like that deck is so hard to go like back to back, try and go off, that you have all the time in the world to do something. You don't even have to win the next turn. If you're like applying any pressure throughout the game, you probably got it if you can disrupt them the first time.
Yeah, it's kind of like one removal spell.
Yeah.
And you're fine. But like, I understand the sentiment of like, this is not a fun play pattern to have. Because you definitely have situations where you're like, you might want to play a deck that doesn't have a bunch of instant speed interaction, right? Where you're like, my little green-white artifact deck. Like, literally can't play it.
Right.
Because you're like, I got a bunch of power on the board, and you just get comboed. And you're like, okay, well, like, so like, it ends up putting, if that's one of your best decks, it pushes a bunch of your other decks out of the format.
It does, but it also like oddly enables some decks that would have been fringe otherwise. Like, I made a quick list here of hate cards that like I have actually run into playing this deck. Draneth Magistrate stops this deck dead in its tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Archon of Emeria or Rule of Law both stop this deck dead in its tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Settle the Wreckage. If you get settled, you are not going to win the game because you don't have anything left.
Mm-hmm.
Ashiok Dream Render stops you from searching, so you can't Eldritch Evolution.
Okay, yeah. I was like, what do you need? But you still like can put, or well, I guess if you hit the evolution, then the evolution is a stop.
Right.
Okay.
Necromentia.
Mm.
You hit the dinosaur, and then whatever else they're doing doesn't matter.
Yeah, a bunch of 3/2s isn't really that scary.
Right. Or like the giant. Like it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Like Draneth Magistrate and Archon of Emeria do run into the dinosaur problem.
Right, they're 3 dinosaur, yeah.
Yeah, they're 3 toughness. So like,
right, but if your opponent is using their dinosaur to kill your hate piece, like that's kind of the same thing as a removal spell.
Fair.
You're stopping them from going off in a turn, and you're taking a potential piece for them to go off out of their hand.
Mm. I did like run into the Archon of Emeria, and I was just like, oh,
yeah,
I know why you're here.
Yeah,
like this makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So
like I got settled. Like that's just brutal.
That card comes up every so often, and you like always forget it exists, and you're like, oh yeah, that is a thing that is legal to happen in this format.
Well, I saw the mana up, and I was like, oh, they're gonna Wandering Emperor me.
Mm-hmm.
Like nope.
That's what I was getting ready to say. Like for 2 years, 5 years ago, or 4 years ago, we were like trained that 4 mana up meant you're gonna get settled.
Right.
And then for the last 2 years, 4 mana, 2 white up meant you're getting emperored.
Right.
And then they get the sneaky, actually it's settled now.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, I still got them through a Wandering Emperor. That's fine. Like, nope.
Do not have them through a Settle the Wreckage?
Nope. Was not fine.
No.
I do not have that many basics in my deck.
I mean, I've, oh gosh, what was I playing? Oh, I was playing, thing. And, oh gosh, creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And I got stone brained.
Oh, there you go.
Still won, I think.
Yeah.
Just was like, all right, I guess we're on the 2/2 beatdown plan.
Mm-hmm.
I beat someone where I think they stone brained me, and I had like 5 power on board, and they knew I had a Xenagos in my hand,
mm-hmm.
and I cast a Xenagos off my treasures and doubled the power of my goblin and killed them. Did exactly 7. I was like, sick. It's like, we did it.
I guess any of the like Hushwing Griffs do this too, although I haven't run into any of them.
Yeah, like Stern Proctor would do it.
Yeah. Again, dies to the dinosaur, but then, like I said, you're trading for their piece, so I think that's ultimately a win.
Yeah, so you do, like, there are ways to deal with it. It definitely has the, kind of like the Invasion of Allura deck that did really well its like first weekend.
Yeah.
And then people like kind of realized what was up, and they're like, okay, well, we can't keep losing to this.
Yeah, that's kind of another point that I wanted to make, is that, you know, there was a lot of talk on X and in our Discord and everywhere basically about how this deck is broken, this deck needs a ban, blah, 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 blah. And I think it's important to remember that the way that people see Magic now isn't the way that Magic always was. And, you know, back when we were scrappy up and coming tournament grinders, you'd watch your coverage, you'd listen to some tournament coverage, you'd look at tournament results, and you'd kind of formulate a plan for what you were going to play the following week based on what the meta was set at the previous week. I think now with the pace at which games get played on Arena, people kind of forget that there is a metagame because you're just like endlessly, you're incentivized to just keep jamming decks into each other, and you forget that there's a metagame that you can like tweak your deck and grow and evolve. And now the meta has shifted, and I don't think this deck is even necessarily the right choice anymore because it just gets clowned by so much stuff that people realistically should be playing anyway. Like Subtle Lyrica is a great card that people should probably be playing. Removal, like people should be playing some sort of interaction. Like these aren't wild concepts.
I was one who was like, the format's kind of unplayable now, and it was, but it was because like I should have been for like the deck I was playing.
Well, I mean, it's not just you. Like the sentiment was all over X and Reddit.
Yeah,
and everything else.
But then I was like, how do you beat this deck? Like, if the thing doesn't resolve, they lose.
Yeah,
and they only have like 8 things that matter.
Right.
And if the or if you kill the thing, it doesn't matter.
Right.
So you just play a deck that is full of those things.
Yep.
And you like win the game relatively easily.
I don't even think your deck has to be full of those things. Like you can run some sort of interaction and not be warping your deck around like beating the thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it is a question of if you're like a red deck, right? Like, so like I think there are 12 cards in creativity that kill the appraiser. Less that kill dinosaur, right? So like the counter spells are more valuable to get that. But like, you know, you definitely can't play Molten Collapse?
Yeah.
Right, you can't play Molten Collapse in a metagame where the Geologic Appraiser combo exists. Right, because you just lose the game and you just stare at your 2-mana removal spell that you can't cast.
Yep.
Right, but like, you also have to be mindful of like, since Quintorius Con exists, you're like, well, you know, Fiery Impulse is great, but it doesn't hit Planeswalkers. So you're like, well, you have to make sure you also have ways to deal with that. But no, you definitely can like, not warp your deck, but make choices. Like, again, like, oh, I like Molten Collapse, but I guess I have to play Infernal Grasp.
Yeah.
Or, I guess there's not a 2-mana removal spell that kills a Planeswalker. Well, I guess Bitter Ordeal does.
Sure.
Right. So, yeah, you make those kind of concessions where, like, I can't play this card because of this reason. Just like a while back, Cedric was playing so I think it was like a blue-black control deck, and people were like, why don't you play in Modern? It's like, why don't you play Heartless Act? And he was like, I want you to think long and hard about the cards being played in the format, and that's when you had Murktide Region every
He was
and figure out why I'm not playing Heartless Act and I'm playing. I think he was playing Go for the Throat or something. But like, just think about long and hard why I'm not playing Heartless Act. And it's like, yeah, like it doesn't kill a Murktide Region.
Right.
So, like, yes, it is better in many situations, but in this one situation, it is very much worse. So, yeah. So just like, yeah, like the deck is annoying, but like beatable, and it's gonna be a thing that like is like around.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a deck that's going to go to 0 or go to 0 like anytime soon.
Right.
So like you just have to be like mindful, just kind of like Amala, right? Like you have to have instant speed removal to kill either the wild growth walker or the Amala.
Yep.
And you kind of have to be able to do it multiple times.
Yeah, I mean that deck is actually, I think, harder to interact with than the Discovered deck is.
Yeah,
because that deck actually has a game plan. Otherwise,
it has a game plan. Otherwise, and it also just has like a bunch of ways to get the pieces.
Right.
Right. Like you have right. They have Court of Calling. They had Collected Company. They have Extraction Specialist.
Yep.
Right. Like you just have all these ways to rebuy and find your pieces. So, like that's why, like, what is it, Rending Volley?
Mm-hmm.
Like Rending Volley is a good card in your like sideboard of a red deck, right? It kills Amala.
Mm-hmm.
It kills Greasefang.
Yep.
And it kills Quintorius when you down tick it. Yep. Like it just kind of covers all the bases. And you don't have to play the ward on Amala.
Right.
So like just stuff like that where you're like, oh, I can play Rending Volley and it kind of covers these 3 decks. Where like maybe you would play something else.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just being mindful. But the fact that you got settled, it like just breaks my heart.
Yeah, that was brutal. I mean,
like that's
great.
one.
Like I was oddly happy to see it, but at the same time, I was completely blown out.
That's one of those things where you're like, it's like you wish you had like arena chat just to be like, well played. I forgot that was a card.
Yeah.
Like, oops, got a scoop.
Yep. You got me. All of my damage is exiled now.
Yes. Cannot do anything.
I only have 2 clones left in my deck. Cannot win.
They had one of those like grids for like a recent event. I forget where it was. And the best performing deck was blue-white control.
Yeah.
And then Discover was had an under 50% win rate.
Not surprising in a field of blue-white control.
Yeah, like you're just like, oh yeah, I can't win. Because like even if they like, you know, have a Cavern of Souls to like force through their Appraiser,
mm-hmm.
then you just counter the clone.
Right.
Or you're like, fine, resolves, kill it.
Right.
So. Alright, we're about an hour in.
Mm-hmm.
So do we want to do these odds and ends, or do you want to just call it we can odds and ends next week?
I mean, we can not do odds and ends also. This
okay, that is also
I wrote this episode yesterday before the surprise weekly MTG stream. So that was
before they surprised we might ban things.
Yeah.
We might pay attention to your formats.
Yep. So that was filler for what the episode would have been. Anyway,
all right.
It would not break my heart if we don't get to it.
All right. So with all that, I think we got a show. So if you want to reach out to us on social media, Facebook, Discord, Twitter, all that jazz, links are in the description.
Yeah, hit us up. Let us know what you think. If you're looking to support the show, there's a couple ways you can do it. The first is with our TCG player affiliate link, CasualTryHard.com/TCG. Surf on over, do your shopping, support the show. We'd appreciate it. If you want to support us more directly, patreon.com/CasualTryHardMTG. You get to look at our show notes. You get to listen to our pre-show. And when I have stuff to send out, I'll send it to you. If you like any of that, or if you just want to show us how much we mean to you, patreon.com/CasualTryHardMTG. Chip a couple bucks in and support the show. Got anything else for this week?
I don't think so. So with that, we'll catch you on the internets.